Okay, I want to talk about a couple of things today. First of all, I want to talk about note-taking. And we'll start from there. Note-taking in World's format is very much different than it is in policy debate. Very, very much different. You only speak once. You have a wide variety of things that you have to do and compose before the debate. So it's quite a bit different. As such, I'm going to suggest the way that I do it when I debate, and it seems to work pretty well for me. If it doesn't work well for you, I'm sure you'll find your own way. And that's cool, okay? I think you have 4 different pieces of paper that you use. The first is your prep page, and I'm just going to show you how I do my prep page. I usually only use 1 page to prep from, okay? And right at the top, I'll just make a little list of the words in the motion that need to be defined, how I would define them, how I define the opposition, how I think.
Is there a word you've written up there? I can't.
Yeah, terms.
Oh, sorry. It's a little
Terms,
small.
that's all right. Move closer if you need to.
I will.
And then just make a list of terms, because that'll help you think about things otherwise. Okay. Next thing you do is you're either government or opposition, and you make a list of what you think are the best arguments, and I always suggest at least 6, especially if you're at the bottom of the table, because they may use a lot of the good ones, so your new matter will have to be something that's not in there, okay? And if you are a second team, as they make an argument, you just cross it off, okay, of your list, so you have a list of them all, and you cross off the ones that they're using. On the bottom, I generally put my ideas for rhetoric, slogans, ideas, the only thing we have to fear is beer itself, or whatever slogans you're thinking about using, and you can write them on there, because during prep, everything doesn't come to you at the same time, right? You may think, oh, here's the slogan, and wait, here's another argument. And the other thing I do over in the right is to list some facts or examples, right? For example, with Hillary Clinton, I might put Whitewater. I might put Vince Foster.
Oh, that's the thing you really.
I might put Sue, right? The fundraiser. I might put Arianics surrounding the Jennifer Flowers thing, right? I might, who knows what, right? Just put different facts and things that you can use. You're not sure exactly where you're going to use them, okay? And then up here, I might put a couple of POI questions as I think of them. So basically, you have a bunch of different things on one page, and I'm a very visual thinker, so it's good for me to all have them there, right, without too much detail. I don't need a lot of detail. You don't have a lot of time to write stuff down in prep. So this is your prep sheet, right, and this pretty much lets you know what's going on. Okay, that's sheet of paper number 1. First one you do. Second is your flow of the debate. Take a sheet of paper, lay it out, and you would put on the number of columns for the speeches that will come before you and yours. Okay? So let's say you're the second speaker for the first opposition. Okay? So you would need 4 columns. But I would probably make your speech a little bigger. Right? Make yours a little bigger, because the kind of advice I'm going to give you is, I want you to write more in your column, but more on that in a minute. And I think you need 2 pages here. You need one for the gov arguments, right? and then on the other side, and then on another page, you can put the op arguments. I think, however, you should use the same number of columns on both pages. That way, if you put the op arguments, right, and you put them over here, it's pretty clear to you that this is the second speech and you won't get them confused. Like the first column on one page is the first gov, and the first column on another page is first op. That could be a little confusing. And if you want, what I do sometimes is write something, you know, if you want to be down with OPP, then you know that's your op page, and this is a blank column anyway, right? So it's pretty clear about what's going on.
Wait, so why would you even make that column if you're not going to use it?
So that the second column is always the same speech, doesn't matter which page it's on.
Okay.
I don't want you getting confused as to which page is which.
All right.
Right?
But why have two pages at all? Just so you have more space?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're going to need it.
Okay.
Okay, also, see, you guys just drift back and forth between arguments by either side, and you jump around and you're disorganized. What you should do is refute the other side's arguments, then go to your arguments. But that's not what you do. Right? You bounce back and forth. And what I want you to do is to take all of one set of arguments, then go all to the other set of arguments. See what I mean? This is so you're able to give a speech where you're like, introduction, okay, first I'm going to refute the arguments of the other side, then I'm going to rebuild our arguments, and then I will offer a new argument. Okay? That's generally how most of the speeches go. And then you actually do that. Phase 1. Let's refute their arguments. Phase 2. Let's rebuild our side's arguments. Phase 3. Let's present a new argument. And this makes you sound organized. It also makes it much easier for the judge to take notes, because watching David and Nicole try to flow your debate last night, it was extremely difficult. Because you're all over the map, jumping around, and they're having a hard time taking good notes, because you don't take things in groups, which is what you need to do, and these notes will help you do that. Okay? So, how much do you write? I mean, you are the second op speaker here, and you don't need to write a lot about what your partner says. Right? Just some. You know what your partner says. One problem I observe that you have is you take too many notes for what they're saying, and you don't take enough notes for what you're going to say. Right? So your speeches are halting, you don't have a lot of clear information for those ideas. Okay, so that becomes a problem. You're sort of making it up on the spot, and my memory is pretty good, but I can't do that. Right? So let's give another example here. And let's say that this is the gov page. First gov has two arguments, and you just sort of write down the second gov's going to have a third argument, right? Second government speaker has the third argument. Okay? And then, what are you going to try to do? Well, you're going to try to refute these. Generally, I would draw a line like that. And you don't need to flow all this debate, all what's going on, everything. You should be spending much more time preparing your speech, especially your new matter. Right? Y'all are pretty weak on new matter. Right? And so you don't need to be flowing this stuff all the time. But here's what happens when you get up. This is what you should be working on, your column. And you say, okay, what am I going to say about this first gov argument? What are the important things I want to say? And I think you want to say something about each of their major arguments. Not, as some people do, now I will refute. I'll refute, say a couple of things, and then I'll move on. You're not comprehensively refuting anything. You're grabbing a couple of ideas you disagree with, answering them, and moving on. Right? So here's what I suggest, and I think this works really well to put a lot of content in your speech and make you sound better. Every time you think of a really great argument against number one that you're pretty sure you're going to use, over here you put number one and then write it down. Then you're sort of thinking, listening to the debate, and, well, you know, I have another argument I'm going to use against their number two. And, oh, wait a minute, I thought of another cool argument against number one, so I'll put it up here. See what's happening? And you're sort of composing things as you listen. And I think you'll do much better at composing arguments if you sit there and listen critically than if you try to write down every word they're saying. Because your brain is focused on transcribing when it needs to be focused on refuting. Okay? And then, you know, you hear that third argument, you know, and by the time it's time for you to speak, you're pretty ready. Then when you go, turn to, I'll answer your question, turn to the government's major arguments. Their first argument is this: we think that's all wrong. One argument, two argument, three argument. Now the government's second argument is this: well, we don't see much logic there either. In fact, I think there are three real big problems. Number one, argument. Number two, argument. Number three, argument. My God, you're starting to sound organized. Now their new argument was this: well, I got some things to say about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Now what happens is you put a lot of pressure on them. And you're not spending a lot of time repeating what they say. Well, they said Hillary was this and that and the other. Because you don't score points for repeating their arguments. Just tell the judge, here's what their argument is and here are my answers. I want to spend my time on my answers that kick their butt. Okay? Matt.
So should your flow end up kind of looking like a graph like that?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it should. Well, your flow of the other arguments in the debate.
Right, that one page.
Yeah, this one page should look like that. And don't worry, if these aren't filled in, who cares? Okay. You're not giving this speech anyway. Mm-hmm. However, you know, if your partner said something awesome, you might want to write it down so you'll remember it. Mm-hmm. Or better yet, why not just go ahead and put it over here? Mm-hmm. Right? So you want to repeat it.
Don't flow your partner's speech.
You can if you want to. Okay. What I'm saying is you should critically listen instead of transcribing. And the stuff you write down is the stuff you're going to use in your speech. And basically, when you're refuting the government's case, you're reading your speech from this column. Notice how I drew the lines across here like this? So it became clear, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. If you cross this line, you better tell the judge you're on to number 3. Right? Okay, is everybody down with this page? And the other page is just, you know, the other arguments. Joseph.
When you were writing down these possible points for your speech, should you be incorporating them into your points of information as well? Or I know you're going to cover
I think you do it. I think you do it the opposite way. I think if a good point is made through a point of information, you add it to the list.
Okay.
As was made clear in our point of information, they have no idea what Hillary Clinton's policies are, right?
Yeah, but I mean, look, while you're coming up with all of these ideas during their speech, you need to be.
If you have an idea, you might stand up and just give it, right? But I don't think you need to flow points of information.
But would it be would it be more effective for your speech if you were to set it up with a point of information?
Sure, absolutely.
So it would be in cross-ex in policy, if you ask a question and then.
Yeah, you have to sucker them into thinking that you want to say the opposite of what you really want to say, and then they'll run into your arms.
Yeah.
You can't tell them, isn't it true that Hillary has no experience in foreign affairs? No, it's not true. She has quite a bit of experience in foreign affairs, obviously. See what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to think about handling it in a different way. And you're not going to get them to admit a lot of things. So that's, what I do. And once you get them to say something that you can use against them, you definitely write it over here and make it an important part of your speech. The point of information we asked proved our point, that. right? And then the judge will go, yep, that's true. You don't get good points of information are fine, but in order to maximize them, you need to use them in your speech.
Yeah.
To bolster your arguments. Yes, Nancy?
How do you handle it when your partner uses maybe half of what you have? Do you repeat it
Don't
or
worry
cross
about
it out?
yeah.
Or?
See, this is what you decide during the debate. Which of these do you want to be new? Which of these are all-star args from your partner you want to repeat? Right? You decide that during the debate and put them on this list.
Because I was kind of crossing stuff out. Well, my partner said this one and this one and this one, so then...
No, you can repeat what your
remaining.
partner said. In fact, it's really good. And my part, and third, remember my partner's excellent argument that, right? You always want to praise your partner. That helps. Okay, so are we good on this page?
I'd say it's a little bit different.
It's really different.
Maybe you're going to cover it like at another time, but you...
I'll tell you if I will. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I forgot it. But anyways, with an introduction, like you said that my introduction was generic and that like I needed to come up with a more like debate-specific introduction.
We're going to have that.
Okay.
We're going to have a fourth piece of paper that's going to take care of that.
All right.
Okay? All right. Next piece of paper. Your new argument. The new argument you're going to present, you just have you have a name for it, and then you just sort of write it out. Not necessarily word for word, but in a very detailed outline, in a much more detailed way than anything else you're going to say. Right? You just have a piece of paper with your new argument. And then you know that when you have 3.5 minutes left, it's time to hit your new argument. All right, so you figure you have a minute, 30 seconds for your introduction, a minute and a half for one of these pages, a minute and a half for the other page, then 3.5, then 3 minutes or so for your new argument, 30 seconds for your conclusion, and you're done. All right, so you sort of have to map your time use, and these pages will help you do that. Okay? Now, one thing that can happen here is, if you think you've written down just a bunch of stuff, more than you could possibly say, go, well, this one's not so strong, I won't use that one. Right, like I've written down too much, this one's not so hot. I'll cross that one out. Make sure to renumber them. And I'm telling you, it makes you look so together when you number your arguments. You say, okay, their first argument is this, and we kind of don't agree with that because blah, 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 and also blah, blah, and don't forget about blah, blah, blah. But it makes you really look like you're in charge of the argument, and it's when you say, their first point we find false for 3 reasons. Number 1, number 2, number 3. All right, it makes you sound really together. And let me just tell you that this has paid off for me in international debating, and I don't compete in tournaments, but I debate in exhibition quite a bit, is if this argument is their awesome killer argument that I'm really worried about, I'll have 5 there. I'll have 5. I'm not worried about that. Right? Boyana said she noticed that about me in public debates, that all of a sudden I'll have 5 or 6 about one argument. That's the one I'm worried about. And you know what? If I launch 5 or 6 good reasons why it's not true, they're probably not going to win that argument. Because they're not going to get in there and dig through all that stuff. Right? Whereas if this argument's not that important, maybe I'll only have 1 or 2 short things to say about it. Right? Pick the things that you're worried about and punch them out. Many violent metaphors, I'm sorry. Okay? Now, for this new argument, we're going to talk in just a minute about how to construct that. Make sure you insert your examples, right, to prove it, which is something that you guys don't do very well yet. And look at it before you stand up and say, all right, is that enough for 3 minutes? Is that too much for 3 minutes? Right, and so to say to yourself, and if you've got this, you know that, after a couple of minutes, you need to be down here. Right, so you think about it. This page, I'm going to present it in 3 minutes. Well, then after 1 minute of it, I ought to be about here. And after 2 minutes, I ought to be about here. And 3 minutes, I ought to be about here. Okay, you have to pace yourself with time. And if you have a timer in front of you, you'll be able to do that. Okay? Are we good on the third piece, your page? Okay, the fourth piece of paper is just an introduction and conclusion page. And here you might write out or sketch out your introduction and your conclusion.
I just, as say I'm the second speaker of the first stop, how would I make an effective introduction?
Well, you first, it would incorporate the rhetorical ideas you thought of before the debate.
Right.
It would be shared with the rhetorical ideas that your partner is going to use, because you all should be singing the same tune.
Yep.
Right? And then, so, yeah, that's how you would put it together.
So just sort of, I mean, if you were to use the slogan technique, you would sort of repeat the slogan and then
And then there's something else surrounding it. Yeah.
Right, yeah, give like
Another sentence or so surrounding it.
Okay.
Okay?
But I mean, so I should use that like 30 seconds?
Yeah, that's maximum.
Okay.
But, and it's 30 seconds that's about the issues. It's not, hi, I'm Joe.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to be here today. What an exciting debate we're having.
Right.
Nobody's going to vote for you for having said that.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you give a powerful rhetorical introduction and conclusion, they're likely to be more swayed by you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Introduction and conclusion page. And so then you know what you're doing, right? You don't even need to take this page up with you, right? Your prep page, right? You have the introduction and conclusion page. You have one page for the gov arguments, one page for the op arguments, and one page for your new argument. You're good to go. Now, if you're the first speaker in the debate, you only have these. If you're the first gov, you only have these. If you're the first op speaker of the first op team, you only need 2 columns, right? You don't need to. And then the entire rest of the debate, you're sitting there listening really hard, trying to think of good points of information to make. And that's your job. Once you're done speaking, it's your job to make good points of information. Okay? Any questions about this technique of flow sheeting? I think you need to try it in practice and see if it works for you. And you might change it a little bit so it does. Yes, Nancy?
Did you say conclusion about 30 seconds too? Or?
Yeah. 20, 30. All right, so this page is worth a minute. These 2 pages are worth 3 minutes. This page is worth 3 minutes. And that's sort of a good way to keep your time balanced. Well, thank you.
Wait, could you say that again? Sorry. 1 minute for the intro conclusion page and 3 minutes for the other 2?
Hey, yes, 1 minute for the introduction conclusion page, 30 seconds each. 3 minutes for the gov op page, and then 3 minutes for your art.
Okay.